Hello everybody, Andrew Casey at Hypersanity Books for Kids. Today I'm doing a shout out to Faceless Book Reviews. I like his channel. There is something about getting out within nature and being on walks, and I don't know what his face looks like. And just like certain characters, I don't want that revealed. I would rather have the mystery till the day I go to the grave. I'd rather not know who Faceless Book Reviews is or what he looks like. But his channel is awesome, and I will leave a link at the end screen to check it out. But today's video, we're talking about outlining your novel. There are different methods that you may be interested in, and I think some methods are quite similar when you look at this video. And you may look at this video a few times to get some inspiration from different methods that may help with your writing. For now, we'll just get into it. Number 1, the hero's journey. This is the most common method, and it's the most common method that's taught within schools around the world. But there are different variations of the method, but you can look it up for yourself. But here is one of the examples. The call to the adventure goes through the threshold, meeting characters, whether they're helpers, mentors, temptations, other conflicts, and then there's the abyss or death or rebirth moment for the character, something that leads to a revelation where the character picks themselves up, goes through the transformation of the character, different atonements until they return home. And some stories can be written this way, especially for a series, but this is the most common method to go off. Number 2, 3-act structure. This is the most common method that I use, especially with watching movies, and sometimes with pulling apart certain stories. I look at the 3-act structure. The first act is the first quarter of the story. It's introducing characters, introducing some of the early conflict. The second half, which is so Act 2 is actually half of the story. So when you do watch certain movie trailers, you may notice a lot of things within the trailers are within Act 2 of the actual story, the conflict itself. And then after a certain point, say with a police story, they get taken off the case, and then it comes to some sort of revelation that they have to do something to solve the case despite other obstacles. There's that down moment, and then Act 3 is the redemption moment of where the character is going to go forward and do what they need to do to conclude the story. The 3-act structure works quite well, and it's something that can be a simple concept to work out for yourself what you're pulling apart within a story. So have a think about it. Where does Act 1 end? Where is the midpoint for Act 2? And where is Act 3? Where does that actually begin? Number 3, plot point theory. The plot point theory is similar to what you could see when you pull apart the 3-act structure. You have the indicing incident, the beginning of the story, of course. Then you have plot point 1. That is the end of Act 1. The pinch point is certain conflicts between Act 1 to the midpoint of Act 2. Then you have the pinch point. So usually from the halfway point, there's some other conflict within the story. The black moment is the difficult part. That's where the real characters have different situations where things seem to be impossible, as it's leading to plot point 3 being Act 3, and then the final battle and the resolution or end of the story. So think about the plot point theory compared to the 3-act structure. You can see that some of the examples are very similar. Number 4, writing from the middle. It may seem strange, but you may have an idea of the midpoint of your story, so why not start from there? Writing from the middle to work through your story. And it does say within this particular book that it is for plotters and pantsers. Plotters are people who do like to work on outlines for their story, and then some people who are pantsers, like Stephen King, just do a lot of writing. I don't completely agree with pantsers. I do think some sort of outline is necessary for writing a book, or some sort of guide to follow from. Otherwise, think about it. If you have an idea for a story and you know the middle point, Why not start there? Number 5, scenes and sequels. Have a scene open up with some sort of conflict and have a sequel be a reaction, and then add up another scene followed by another reaction. Scenes and sequels, the idea is to keep the constant tension going within your story. And when you look at this diagram with rising action, this is relevant especially for climaxes, where when you look at certain films, have you ever wondered why there is some sort of conflict that looks like it's going to come to a climactic point, but not just yet? There's still another sequel to come along. And then there's another rising action or another scene leading to another sequel to that response. And that's one of the big points with rising action in the climax of a story. So the scenes and sequel methods just allows you to keep going with adding more conflict within your story. 4-scene outline. One of the biggest points with the 4-scene outline is to divide your story into quarters, similar to what you would do with the 3-act structure, but think of it this way. You keep the word count also very close, so you might have 1,000 words, which may not sound like much, but just for this example, 1,000 words for the first part of the story, where you have some conflict. Then the next part, you add another 1,000 words and double the trouble. Then you have triple the trouble for the third part. And then, of course, for the fourth part, leading into your higher climactic point, you have quadruple the trouble. And that's where the other method before with the scenes and sequels method would work well for this. But the 4 structures may be a way of outlining your novel, and it works well for novellas especially, if you're trying to keep to a consistent story and a general word count. I have seen some pantsers who write books where half the story is the third act, and it just doesn't have that part of the story that makes sense. There's certain elements of the story that just don't seem present. So maybe dividing your story into quarters might be a good method.